was getting on the school bus to go to school one morning at about 7:30. I got on the bus and I had a shoulder bag full of books, another bag resting on my arm that was full of books, and I also had books sort of rested in that arm as well. So I was very laden with baggage, and I got on the bus, put my ticket in, and the bus took off very suddenly. I noticed that there weren't very many seats available at all. There weren't any sort of available at the front, and I thought it would be safer to just stand at the front of the bus because it had taken off so suddenly. I didn't really want to make my way down the aisle and hit people with my bag or risk tumbling over. So I stood at the front of the bus, and it was fine for most of the journey, and just before we got to the interchange, the driver tried to speed through an amber traffic light before noticing that there was a red light camera, and then he slammed the brakes suddenly and I flew into the windscreen. So it was sort of painful afterwards. At the time I was in shock. So when the bus pulled into the bus interchange, they asked if I needed any kind of medical assistance, but I wasn't really aware of the extent of my injuries at the time because it was such a sort of shocking experience. So I got on another bus to school and then called my mum when I started to feel sick and noticed that I had a headache, and soon afterwards bruising started to appear, and we went to the hospital and I was checked out. I did have quite a lot of bruising to the left side of my body because the majority of the impact was taken by my head and my shoulder. So there was structural damage done sort of through my shoulder and up into my neck. I had a hematoma on the back of my head, and just sort of swelling, things like that. I had quite a bit of physio afterwards. After going to the doctor, they suggested that physio would help, and so I went and saw them for a while. The accident also sort of, I suppose, was a trigger for anxiety, and so I also had to receive counselling after the accident as well, which was really useful because the anxiety was, it affected my schoolwork quite a lot. I mean, as well as the physical injuries and the time I had to have off school just so that I could actually sort of physically recover, I also had to have quite a bit of counselling to be able to go back to study as well. My mum probably would have just had to be more of a taxi driving me between appointments and things. There were days that I'd go to school and think that I was all right, and then need to come home either because of the physical pain or even later on because of the anxiety as well. So she was quite good. She sort of had to make sure that she was always there to help me out because, yeah, obviously I didn't have my licence at the time, hence why I was catching the bus in the first place.
Rebecca was actually a schoolgirl at the time, travelling to school in her final year of schooling, and she was quite an exceptional student. One of the hardest things for Rebecca was the fact that it impacted her ability to study, and as someone who took enormous pride in her marks and had huge plans for her future, she was so shaken by the fact that she couldn't study like she used to, and suddenly all of her plans for the future were coming into question like they never had before. If Rebecca had been injured in New South Wales, Rebecca would have had almost no entitlement, and in the proposed changes, it excludes Rebecca entirely.